Well, hello once again. This is me, Leonard Wells, broadcasting as usual from HASLINGDEN, north of Manchester in the UK, on Friday the 26th of August 2011. I have a question in my mind this morning. Has capitalism, as we know it in the West, failed us? So let's just look around for a moment and see the world as a young person sees it. For many young people in this country, there aren't any jobs. That's one important thing. If you're not brilliantly skilled at something, very difficult to get a job. They prefer someone with experience, they say. And you can't get experience without a job. Very logical. That's one thing. If you want to get a university education, you have to go into a lot of debt. Maybe up to 30, 40, 50,000 pounds, depending on how long and which university you go to. That's if you go in England. So that's two things. Can't get a job. Even with a degree, it's difficult to get a job. It helps, but it's more difficult if you haven't got one, but it's still very difficult. Third, most people can't afford to own their own house. Young couples are having to combine their income and then avoid having a family because they can't afford for one of the members to be off work. So we're in a terrible situation. Now, when I was young, there were council houses. You rented a council house. So many of us rented a council house that it wasn't a stigma, because some of them were very nice, very attractive, reasonably comfortable, warm, usually with a good bus service, and the rents were very reasonable. So everybody, if they could get on the list, could afford to rent a council house. Education was free. University education was free. If you could get into university, it was free. And you got a grant if you didn't have sufficient income. So that's three things. No jobs, can't afford a house, can't afford an education. So we've come a long way, but gone backwards, it seems to me. Those are just a few thoughts. Now, let's just look at if you can find a house that you can afford. As I say afford, but just look at what's involved in having a mortgage. Your hands are tied behind your back and your legs are shackled for life. Believe me, a mortgage is a license to print money. Not only is it difficult to get a mortgage, but they want a fee up front to give you one. I was quoted 960 to borrow 15,000 recently. 960. No, 995. Almost £1,000. Then some of them want a fee if you pay the mortgage off early. That's on top of a decent rate of interest. So they're getting greedy. We all got greedy during the housing boom. It's all our own fault. If you get greedy, you get punished. It's in the good book. If you are greedy, it means you are selfishly stealing from other people. And of course, everybody wants their house to increase in value. But suggest that people reduce the house so that other people can have a house, can afford to buy a house, and everybody doesn't look the other way and they don't want to know. Think about this suggestion. I know people would think I'm nuts, and I know it won't happen because nobody would do it. But in the 60s, France's currency was the French franc, and there were thousands of them to the pound. Very, very numerous. So the price of goods was ridiculous. A sort of loaf of bread was, I don't know, 1,200 francs or something, old francs. But then de Gaulle changed the system and brought in new francs by knocking off 2 noughts. So 1,200 francs became 12 francs and so on. Now, how about we do that with the price of houses? How about we knock a nought off everybody's house? What would that do for us? It would immediately mean that poor people could afford one. But then the building societies and banks wouldn't be so interested in giving a mortgage, say, for a house worth £15,000. A mortgage on a house of £150,000 is worth having, but 13,000 or 15,000 they wouldn't want to know. So we got ourselves in a pretty pickle. That's how it looks to young people. On top of all those things, they're surrounded by people trying to do them no good. Tobacco companies trying to get them hooked on nicotine so that they'll have a slave for life, giving them good money to buy cigarettes. That's one thing. Then there's all these temptations to buy this, that and t'other. All the latest mobile phones and iPods and iPads and all these other pads and all these other whatnots. So we're constantly under pressure, and the media don't help because they're constantly giving us bad news. Because for the media, bad news is good news. They're always saying, oh, what are the markets doing? Oh, the market's down this morning. Oh, whoa, gnashing of teeth. The market's down, oh my God. They don't tell you that when the market goes down 100 points, it means that some shares then become available for other people to buy. So, good news depends which way you're coming from. So come on, media, stop making us all bloody miserable. Pardon my French. Take care, bye for now. Speak to you soon. God bless, while it's still legal in the UK to say God bless. All the best.